And for more on Trump's record-breaking fundraising night, let's turn to former Minnesota governor and former presidential candidate Tim Pawlenty. Sir, welcome back to the show. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you and your viewers. Thank you.
So we know that Trump brought in over $50 million. That is a lot of money. Some of this going to Trump's legal battles. How key is the money that came in last night for this campaign? We also know he hasn't matched Biden as of yet when it comes to money on hand.
Well, the record-setting amount is important and noteworthy for all the reasons your reporting just outlined. But another thing is happening that I think is worth commenting on as well, and that is the reconsolidation of support for President Trump at a donor level, at least at the highest billionaire level. And whether that can continue to the mid-donor market and the small donor market remains to be seen. But as we get closer to the election, typically people with a political view come to their political home. And I think that's starting to happen within the donor community for President Trump.
Now, I do understand that the first $6,600 of any contribution goes towards the campaign. The next $5,000 go to his Save America PAC, which is used to pay his legal bills. What does he need to do to bring in more money for his campaign here, Governor?
Well, the billionaire and large donations can get you so far, but if you want to keep up in modern day politics, you have to have a massive network of grassroots donations. He had that last time in 2016. He had it in 2020. But so far this time, he's a little behind in that regard. So I think an interesting next milestone for his campaign will be whether he can reignite the small donor base at a mass scale and pretty quickly. And we'll see if that can get done.
You probably heard me and Libby talk about, the questions around who would be the vice president in the past, or his pick for vice president. In the past, Governor, you said Tim Scott would be a good presidential candidate. How do you think he would do if he was picked as Trump's VP pick?
I think he'd do great. He's an accomplished U.S. senator. He's got a great communication skill. He's got policy experience and expertise. He gets along well with President Trump. I think he passes one of the main Trump tests, which is loyalty. Yeah, and he's demonstrating that on the campaign trail. So I think he'll be a strong contender, as others will too.
Who do you think Trump should pick as a running mate, sir?
Well, the person I think he should pick, but I don't think he will, they both sort of waved it off, is Nikki Haley. And I think the reason she would be particularly strong is because President Trump is particularly weak in suburbs with particular voter groups, and she's particularly strong with those voter groups in those areas. So she'd bring a nice addition to the ticket for that reason. Let's
stay on Haley. We know Biden is going after those Haley voters. You were a big supporter of Haley. You and I have talked about it on the show. What do you think the Republican Party should be doing right now to keep them in the fold, make sure they don't go to Biden?
Well, President Trump has an opportunistic issue set in front of him, and he's amplifying these issues. First of all, illegal immigration resonates with many of those voters. Number two, the economy, and specifically remnants of inflation, bother them a great deal. They don't like an unsafe America in terms of public safety issues and crime. And lastly, I think they don't like identity politics. They would like more emphasis on bringing America together on what brings us together rather than what pulls us apart. I think President Trump, if he could be even 10 or 20% better in terms of his discipline and his message, could really resonate with those voters on those issues. And he's also done one last thing. He's done political jujitsu. He's brought big elements of what used to be the Democrat working class base to the Republican Party. And he's slightly ahead in all the swing states right now. And so, it looks reasonably good for him at this point.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.